Hi everyone, it's Evelyn, and we're going to start planting the sweet peas. I'm in the 5th bed farthest away from our driveway. I'll just put a picture up on the screen right now, and I'll mark which is the bed that I'm working on so that you can get a visual of it. And I'm sitting on just a little stool to talk to you because I got the camera down really low, and it's a little awkward here because this path is only about 27 inches wide. But the only time I will use this path is to harvest the sweet peas. Look who's here. It's Esri. Hi, Esri. And how I'm going to do them is I'm going to plant them every 6 inches. And there's a reason for that. So if I grab this little stick here, which is ripped on our table saw from a 2x4, it's 3/4 inches by 3/4 inches. And what that does, it allowed us to get 2 wide and 4 deep on a 2x4 stakes that are 8 feet long. Well, that's 8 stakes for the price of a 2x4, 8 feet long, which really is the best deal that you can possibly get. But the reason I'm putting these in the ground, this is just a short one for example, is because it's still the beginning of March. Well, it's almost mid-March. And although the 2-week forecast does not show any freezing weather, that doesn't mean it can't happen. And since these have been in my seed room for the past month or so, I need to be able to protect them if we get a sudden dip in temperature, because our last frost date is until the end of April. We never get a frost in April, but that's what it says. So what I do is I take one of these milk cartons and I just cut the bottom off, and then I can slide it down to the ground, and it will make a cloche over top of the sweet pea. And that's why I plant them every 6 inches, because these are 6 inches wide. Now, to make sure I get the 6-inch spacing, I took one of these sticks and I just marked 6 inches all the way along it. So I'm just laying this on the ground along the edge of the bed, and then I'm going to plant the sweet peas along the edge of the bed at each of those 6-inch marks. But before I plant them, I'm going to put the stakes in. So that's what we're going to do now. So just give me a sec. So you can see that goes pretty quickly. And they don't all line up straight, but that's okay. They don't have to. The fun thing about these is that they are, I think, 9 years old now. I originally had these stakes made for my beans. And we moved into this house 10 years ago in a couple of months. And it wasn't the first year because I hadn't built the beds. I believe it was the next year, and I needed tall poles for the beans to grow up. So that's why I needed lots of these. And when I looked for poles to put along in a row, I found them quite expensive, and this was a much cheaper alternative. So I will carry on, and then I will come back with you, and we will start the planting. Okay, they're all in. Now what I'm going to do before I start planting actually is I counted how many stakes I got in here, and there are 18 of them. And I have 4 different types of sweet peas. Now, if you remember, here, I'll come around there and show you. I planted these black, red pots. And I did it in alphabetical order so that the first black outside, because black comes before red, is the earliest in the alphabet. So that makes this the butterfly blend. That makes this one, this red one, the early something or another. This one becomes mammoth, and this one becomes the royal mix. So it's really easy to know which is which. And if I come back around here again, I'm simply going to put some painter's tape around the post that starts the next one. And I'm starting from here, so I know this will be the butterfly blend here until 5 posts. Then I'll do 4 posts of the early blend, then 4 or 5 posts of the mammoth, and then 4 or 5 posts of the royal. I think it'll be 5 of the royal because I think that was my favorite last year. Can't really remember. So I'll just put the tape around where each one begins and stops. And I'll put it up fairly high so I can see it. Because the first year I did this, I put the tape down really low and then it got all buried up and it was hard to see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, I think I'm going to do the butterfly blend 4 because I want the early, if that's the earliest, to have 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then this is where the early ones start. And they're going to have 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So then this is where mammoth starts. So we'll wrap that around there. And the reason I'm using painter's tape is I need something really slim, so if I put those milk jugs on here, it doesn't get stuck in them. I used a surveying tape one year and it made it too thick because I had to tie it on. Okay, so this one's going to have 5. Is that right? No, Royal's going to have 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm going to put the tape on this one. So I will always know what's what just by looking at the tape. We've got butterfly, early, mammoth, royal. I don't even have to write anything down because it's just the 4 and I remember what the 4 are. Okay, so then I'm going to sit down on the ground to plant them, and what I'm going to use are these 2 things that washed up on the beach, and I really like them because I can put them side by side. They're 2-foot squares, so they fit on this path nicely, and I can start on this one. And then I can move over and sit on this one. While I'm sitting on this one, I can just move this one over so I don't have to get up and down. So I'm going to set you up so you can see me plant them. We also, after Storm on the beach, had one of these, which is actually a kneeling pad to sit on. It was still in its wrapper, so it was brand new. Probably blew off a boat. I use this sometimes, but if I'm moving around a lot, I prefer these 2 things. Because this isn't very big. I much prefer, look, I've got a 2-foot by 4-foot space to sit and move. And I like to sit cross-legged when I plant. Well, especially when I don't have much room. What I'm going to do is take the first ones and just lay them out. Oh, I still got my spacer in here, which I'm going to take out and toss off to the side. There we go. Anyway, I'm going to take these guys out and lay them out to the spot where they go. So that's that. I've got 4 there. And some of these only came in as singles in the pots, but I have plenty. So the 2 that only had singles, I'm just going to plant 2 other pots that only had singles and get... Oh, I'm actually sitting on one. That's silly. Well, I don't need 2 singles if I've got a double. So there's only one of them that needs to be doubled up. I have only 2 left over. They will probably go somewhere else. Or I'll give them away. So I just got my little tiny handy dandy trowel. I'm going to dig the hole. Oh, I got to push my seat back because I want to put it behind the stakes. Because I have other things growing in front of them, so that gives as much of a distance as possible. I didn't mention that I actually put these stakes in 3 inches in from the edge of the garden bed so that I can dig a hole behind them and plant the sweet peas. So first one out, I'm just going to put my hand on either side. I didn't water it much because I didn't want to, so a lot of the soil will just fall out. I actually try to save the soil that falls out because it's my seed room soil. I'll plant it in the hole, and I'll plant it deeper. I always plant everything deeper than it needs to be. So those 2 are done, and these 2 singles, same thing. I'll just put an empty pot here. Well, it's not really empty because it had a bit of soil. I'll shake this out. I'll let any loose soil fall back into it because I'm going to use it. You can see all the roots dangling down. And I'll dig a slightly bigger hole because I got to put 2 side by side in this one. This is the only one that has 2 singles. Now the reason I like to save the soil for my seed room is because I know, because it was in the garbage cans all winter and possibly half the spring. So I know it's not full of living bugs right now. I have a stone pathway that runs up the side of the house here because it gets quite wet. So any stones I come across, I toss onto the pathway. So I like to reuse the soil that I don't need that came out of the seed pods, because invariably I always run out of soil in my seed room and need some more. Okay, so we're going to move those 2 pots there. Get this one in. Now you'll notice I've got some weeds here. I don't know if you can see that. These are buttercups. This is very wet along here. We've got our big O that drains from our house right here, and it's actually wet in there right now. Like if I pick a rock up, you can see how wet that rock is versus the top of it, which is dry. So buttercup is good to grow along here because it's going to stop. We're on a slope, and it's going to stop the erosion of the soil down and into my neighbors down below, where there's about I think there's about a 4-foot drop into my neighbors. And even though our fence goes to the edge, there's a little gap, and we can get erosion through that gap into their property. So by letting the buttercup cups grow along here, it acts as a reduction in any sort of soil erosion that we get. Works really well. Another reason weeds are good. And once my plants are, I mean, the buttercups aren't growing that much at this time of year, and once my plants are established, I don't actually even mind if the buttercups move into the flower bed, because like I said, they help with erosion. And they add diversity to the soil in the root systems, adding lots of extra whatever they add. I don't know specifically what buttercups will add. Put that pot there. Turn it upside down. Let all the roots fall out. I mean, look at how I plant. I let all the roots get exposed. I don't care. I actually handle them because I think I have 10 green thumbs, and if that means anything, then it's probably good to handle my plants. If they like you know how when you touch glass surfaces, you always leave just a slight moisture fingerprint left behind? Well, everybody's got a different fingerprint that they leave behind. They actually use that in forensics now. They can analyze your fingerprint to not just the shape of the fingerprint, but the chemical makeup of that fingerprint to help prove that somebody was the criminal in whatever case. Well, if that's the case, and if you have 10 green thumbs, it probably means you've got a fingerprint that plants like. That's my theory anyway. There's no science behind that. I'm making that up partially. But I like to think that, so I like to touch my plants, and that's one reason I don't wear gloves. I will never wear gloves because I think it's much better to actually touch the plants, and then they grow well. It's like some people say that when you talk to plants, they do better. And I think that's because if you have if you're a really healthy person and you're breathing on them, you're exhaling healthy properties, whatever they may be, and that can be good for the plant too. If you're an unhealthy person, I would wear gloves and not talk to them. So that's the first of the sweet peas. You don't need to see me plant the other 3. You already know I've got to here this one section, and then I'm going to start the next section and move my way down. I will do that off camera and then come back. What I will say is that these sweet peas will not grow very much for the next several weeks. What they're going to do is establish the roots first. That's what plants and flowers do. So they'll look like they're not doing anything, but they're actually doing a lot below ground. So in a couple of weeks' time, when I look at the next 2-week forecast, if we still have decent nighttime temperatures, then I know I don't have to put those milk jug cloches over top of these sticks. Then I'm going to come back, and I've got these little metal fencing units, and I'm going to put them behind the sweet peas and push them in, so that when they're small, they have something that's easier to cling onto to climb than these big 3/4 by 3/4 inch stakes. You'll have to actually otherwise manually help them around the stakes, but this gives them something to start their vertical reach. And I've got enough for them to do the length of this bed, no problem. I've got enough to do the length of multiple beds. Probably all my beds, excuse me, at least on one side. If I want to do both sides, then maybe not all the beds. But this works really, really well. I've done this for quite a few years as well. All right, I'm going to turn you off and come back once all the sweet peas are planted. If I can get up, because there's not much room here between the stakes and the fence. The sweet peas are all planted all along the edge of this bed. In this bed, you can see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 really old small tomato rings. They're actually marking the location of my 6 herbaceous peonies, which, I don't know if you can see that, but I haven't cut any of them back yet. I'll have to do that pretty soon before they start growing. Now, what I'm going to do in this negative space within the C of the sweet peas, pardon me, of the peonies, is I'm now going to plant my leftover potatoes from the winter. As you can see, they're all growing. So I'm going to just lay them out in a grid pattern on the ground within the C, and then I'll go back and just dig each one in by hand. I don't dig like troughs, lay them all out and then plant them in, because I will do them in like a, you know, like a 5 on a dice. So it goes 1, 2, and then a center one, and then 1, 2. That's how I'm going to lay them out. So I'll just start laying them out so you can see. I have to keep them away from the peony roots. Last year I was able to go in between the peonies, but I think that this year the roots of those peonies will be getting too big for that. So I'm just going to lay them out and see how far I get to see if I need to buy any. Last year, keep doing that off camera. Last year I also planted lettuce along the edge of this bed, but for whatever reason my potatoes grew really tall green above ground stalks on them. I mean, they were a good this high, so above my waist. They were really tall. So I had to push them away from the lettuce, because it was my first planting of lettuce, that way, so that I could harvest the first planting of lettuce. But then I had to pull them all back this way to keep them off the peonies, and then my lettuce plants got buried. So knowing that they might grow super long green foliage and stems above the surface of the soil, I'm not going to do a row or 2 of lettuce in this bed this year at all. I had never had the foliage grow so tall in potatoes before, and I wasn't sure how that would affect the potatoes. The potatoes were really good, and they seemed to produce what they should produce. I mean, I didn't do a count per each one, but I was pretty happy with the production of potatoes I got out of the ground. So they didn't affect it in a negative way at all. So that's just something to consider. Anyway, I'm going to continue laying them out, and then I'll turn you back on when I'm ready to plant them. Okay, I've got all the potatoes laid out. I infringed on the peonies a bit more than I wanted to, but I had like 6 little potatoes left, and I just had to use them. So I will start putting some in the ground, and and then this bed will actually be done. So I see a lot of people using their shovels and tipping them out that way. That's really hard on the wrist. I actually do it the other way, which I think is much better. So I'm just going to dig a hole, make sure the chitting, which is the growth side of the potato, at least one of them is pointing up. Push it in, cover it. Put the next one in, cover it. And I'm going to work my way out that way because I'm pulling the dirt this way and I don't want to accidentally cover them up. Oh, I got a rock. Where's that rock? Big rock. Can't throw it that way because I don't want to hit the camera, so I'll just put it off to the side. Now you'll notice I also then use my shovel, little hand shovel, to push the soil back and to lean on. And I will carry on through the bed. And then this bed will be complete for literally the season. It's good to go. It's got the sweet peas, which will start blooming normally at the beginning of June. Last year they didn't bloom till the end of the June, but when I was looking at my notes from last year, I realized that we had bad weather for at least the first half of March. I can't remember when to the third week, so they got planted out late. So that might be why they started blooming late. Then the peonies will bloom. They bloom after my Ito peonies, which are in the other beds. And I believe these bloom around the beginning of June. And then the potatoes will grow all season long and get harvested towards the end of summer. So this bed is literally complete because there's nowhere to put anything else in, unless I plant something vining on the edge or here, right at the front, which I could do because then it could spill out this way. But anyway, I will continue planting the potatoes and then we'll move on to the next bed. Okay, potatoes are all planted. There's actually a couple more things I have to do before we go to the next bed. One is I'm just going to rake it all level, and then two, of course, I have to water it. And there's something else I was going to say, and I've already forgotten what it is. If I think of it, oh yeah, this bed I just finished composting 2 weeks ago. I do direct composting about once a week. So this bed was finished 2 weeks ago, and because I composted between 16 and 18 inches deep for a variety of different reasons, what it also does is allow me to know that if I plant the potatoes 6 inches deep or so, give or take, clearly I didn't measure, I'm not going to get into the actual compost that's decomposing beneath them. And the stuff that's decomposing beneath them will probably also put out a little bit of heat, which will keep the soil a little bit warmer throughout the month of March than it otherwise would. The reason I'm going to rake it is, you see the soil, if I bunch it together, you can see, oops, well that wasn't very good. If I get the rock out of there, if I bunch it together, you can see it's holding together. We are a very wet environment, so this, as you can see by my hand even, I mean, it is very, very wet, the soil still. So if I don't rake it out smooth, the next time it rains, it'll get mud, puddles in it, which I don't want. So I'm going to rake it out, and then I'm going to water. And raking is pretty easy. I don't like to use the prong section. I actually use the other side. And I just do a quick leveling out as best as I can so that no puddles will happen. That's good enough. Then I'm going to get the hose and just water everything down. Oops, that might be too strong a blast for the sweet peas. There. Water where all my potatoes are, even though it's supposed to rain tomorrow. These little pickets here, they're nice hose guards. That's good. Now, of course, my hands are soaking wet and I have to turn you off, so I'm going to go turn you off as best I can and then dry my hands. Okay, I've moved to the next bed. Again, I'm going to put a picture up on the screen and show you which bed that one is so that you know where we are in conjunction of the back garden. But literally, we just did the last 4x8 bed, and now we're doing the first 4x8 bed. There's two 3x5 beds that are over here that still have my strawberries in them, which I'm getting rid of. I'm just getting rid of, but I'm just going to tip you over here so that you can see the... Oh, I got the sun in my eyes. I can't tell if you can see. I'll just swing it around. Can you see all the crocuses blooming there? Pretty cool, eh? So, I've got a little dog here. You can see an ear. We're going to plant the Bachelor buttons now. And this bed has on the... Oh, they can't see, Esri. On the edges of the beds, the long edges and along the back, I did a row of garlic back in the fall, late fall, probably the beginning of November, end of October, something like that. I think it was the beginning of November this year. These two red, bigger tomato cages. mark where my Ito peonies are. I'll put up on the screen which each one is. This front one I'll put up on the screen now, and then that back one I'll put up on the screen now. And the back one was the second one to bloom for the season, so that was kind of fun. Now, what I also have a couple of Swiss chard plants growing in here. They will, I will probably get rid of them before they go to bloom because they'll be in the way. Along the front of the bed is where my zucchinis are going to get planted. So this bed won't get finished today, but the zucchinis are going to get planted out in May sometime. I haven't even started them yet. You'll notice, oops, sorry, Esri, come over here. You'll notice if I bring you forward, if you look down here, I can't see, the sun's in my eyes, hopefully you can see it, around the base of this peony and of the other peony, there's a whole pile of things starting to come up. And those are my, I think they're called grape ice muscari. Again, I'll put the picture up here. I did the grape ice muscari in rings around these two Ito peonies because they will come up and bloom before the Ito peonies flush out, I think, because this is my first year having them here. But that in theory should be the succession of how they go. The hyacinths, or the ice grape muscari will come up and bloom before the foliage of the peonies get really, really big, which won't be until in July. They'll be blooming before that, but they don't really fill it with their foliage until after that. I've got, in the next bed, I've done the same thing with the two Ito peonies that are in there with either the snakehead fritillaria or the white fritillaria. And then the third bed is the reverse. It's either the snakehead or the white. So that's how I've used the space around the base of my Ito peonies, because you can't really plant anything there because the peonies will become such a large mass of foliage as the summer progresses. And also, their root balls are getting really, really big now. So I can't really even dig in that much close around them because of the root balls. But luckily the muscari and the fritillarias get planted fairly shallow. So I'm going to go reset up the camera so you can see what I'm doing with the Bachelor buttons just in a sec. So these are the black button Bachelor buttons, and I've got approximately 2 per cell. I had only planted 2 per cell, and then I realized I had a tiny little hatching of slugs, very small. And since that started, I've only found 7. So I did add in some extra seeds. So some of these cells on these pots, oops, spilling soil all over me, will have more than 2. But I'm just going to go through the bed and lay out a section before I plant them. And I'm just going to push the cell. These are old cells. I've got 2 here. I'm just going to split them in half and just lay them out. Actually, I don't even think I'm going to divide them. I might just plant them 2 per, because I've got quite a few of them, and I don't have as much room as I normally have because of how much bigger the foliage of the Ito peonies is. So if I can divide them, I'll decide it later, but I'm going to first lay out literally all of them. Oh, that one's got a nice little centered root ball. I'm laying them out approximately a full hand's width apart, that might be too far apart, because I know how wide this shovel is. That's 5.5 inches, and I've got them more than that. So, oh no, I don't, because I see when I split this one in half, I didn't see where it was. So I'm going to just do these first few and then eyeball the rest, and that's basically what I had. And then again, I'll come in, stagger the next row. Got a weed here that I will pull out for now, just throw it on the path. And once I've got them all laid out, which is really, these little pots really annoy me, so I'm just going to dump them like that. Then I can just pick up each one. And once I've got them all laid out, then I'll go back and dig them in. Now I can't reach the other side of the bed, so I'll lay out 1/2, and then I'll go back and lay out the other half. And then if I decide to divide some because I need more space, I will do that. But for now, this is what I'm going to do. Nothing in that one. Little tiny one there. I will continue laying them out. I'll dig in a few now, because you don't actually have to really see me dig them all in. Hello, Lila, where have you been? No, out. Good dog. Okay, I'm just going to do the same thing like I did with the potatoes. I'm just going to dig in a little hole and the sweet peas, put it in, and then push the soil around it. This bed was the first bed that I composted, so it's been quite a while since it's been composted because I needed to do it before I planted the garlic. And so since I planted them at the beginning of November, I had this bed completely composted at least by the end of October. Anyway, we'll turn the camera off, plant all my bachelor's buttons, and then we'll get on to the next thing. They're all planted. I'm going to give them a good water, and I'm going to water everything that's in here. And you'll notice I have a pretty good hose spray on here, and I'm going to hit everything from every direction, and that helps create a stronger plant. Especially because we are a wet climate and we do get wind at this time of year, so when it starts raining heavy, they're going to get banged around anyway. Now, I wasn't able to rake this out because clearly I would have just pulled up everything that was in there. So, but I don't know if you can see, whoop, hang on. I don't know if you can see it, but it does create puddles down there. Because we are a clay soil, we're not sand, so the water doesn't dissipate that quickly. Now, one of the nice things about having garlic planted in a U around this bed is they are very stiff plants. And when they grow up, they will act like the lasso method so that the black button bachelor buttons cannot flop out of the beds because the garlic will actually hold them up. Same as the peonies. If they lean this way, especially the ones in the center, they'll hit the peonies, which will hold them up too. So I don't need to do any twine lasso method, any staking, any horticultural netting or anything like that. It's the peonies and the garlic which will hold them up. And I have no idea what the muscari will do because this is my first year having them in this bed, so that will be an experiment. I've never actually grown them on this property before. Haven't grown them since we lived in Cortez, which was 20 years ago, so we shall see how they do here. I really like the way they look in the image with their little white caps to the purple flowers. The ice... Oh, I've forgotten what it's called now. I'll put it up on the screen again. But this bed is done. We're now going to go to the front garden, and I will have planted the sweet peas already, and then I'm going to show you what I'm going to do after the sweet peas there are planted. I'm going to plant something else. Bear with me for the noise out front though, because we are on a busy road and I can't do anything about the car noise. So I'm just going to where's my rag? I'm going to go dry my fingers and turn you off, but you won't see that because I'll cut that part out. But you can see Ezra here, who's not supposed to be climbing on me. Just one sec. Okay, I'm in the front garden. This is the same fence as in the back garden, except it's a different fence. I mean, it's the same property line. And what I did was I planted the sweet peas along the base of all of these nicer looking trellises. Because it's the front garden and the street is like right up here, I didn't want to have all the wooden stakes. I wanted to have it look nice throughout the whole 12 months of the year. I planted the sweet peas, same as I did in the backyard. Watered them already, and now what I'm going to do is I have collected some of my red breadseed poppy seeds, and right in front of the sweet peas, possibly behind them even, I'm just going to open this package up. These are the seeds I've collected. I'm going to pour a whole pile into my hand, as you can see there. And then I'm just going to sprinkle them. Oh, I did that out of the camera. Sorry, I'll do that more into the camera. I'll pay attention to where I'm doing this so I can see which trellises there. Sprinkle some more into my hand, again like that, and I'm going to sprinkle them really liberally. I have to lean in here, just along the length of where all the sweet peas are. I don't know if you can see it, But if you're wondering what's popping up and growing there, those are all bluebells that just naturally show up. So I'm literally just going to do that amount that I put in my hand was just enough in front of that one trellis. I'm going to do that for the whole length, and the reason I'm doing that is because there's lots of birds already, and they will be helping themselves to the poppy seeds. So if I sprinkle the seeds liberally, I'll get some up. That is all done. What I'm going to do is, if you haven't seen how I started all these things by seed, except of course for the poppies, I'm going to link that up here because these are seeds that I started at the beginning of February, and you should check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. Bye.